what's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal, Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with your, let me check, January 12th, 2022 AEW Dynamite review. And before I forget, before I get into tonight's festivities, I want to send a quick note out to you guys. This will be going out Thursday morning, as it normally does, after Wednesday night, because that's when Dynamite happens. Friday, and I can say this because it's already recorded, it's already in the can, it's already set to release. Friday morning, watch your subscription boxes if you are subscribed, and why wouldn't you be subscribed at this point? I dropped a little bit of a commentary. It's not a big deep dive on the whole open door, forbidden door conversation, but it is my little tiny bite of that larger topic. The parts of it that interest me, the parts of it that involve companies that I am interested in, and just what I think about some of the moves happening in wrestling in general. Obviously, it was spearheaded by the Mickie James announcement and the ROH invasion that happened at Hard to Kill, Impact's pay-per-view. And on a side note, again, Impact's pay-per-view was really, really good. All the invasion stuff aside, all the results that I didn't agree with aside, if you haven't checked out Impact in a while, I will say go check out Hard to Kill. It was a really good show. But yeah, keep an eye on that. Friday morning, that'll drop, and I can say that with confidence because it's already in the can. It's already set to release. It's already on the channel, set to release at a particular time. NXT is just doing weird NXT stuff, and away we go. We're coming off of the weekend where Rampage was kind of blah, and okay, we're a couple days out now. We are a couple days out from last Saturday, and can we just admit at this point, this is not even me taking a shot. This is me going along with the high standards that most of the wrestling world has set for AEW now. Can we just admit that as a quote-unquote special event, Battle of the Belts was a bust? There was an interim title shot, there was a title that's not recognized by the company shot, and there was a pretty decent women's title shot. But as far as being a night of champions, a battle of the belts, as they've called it, that show was a bust. I'm just putting it out there. We rebound with this show tonight, which has, as most episodes of Dynamite do these days, incredible highs, incredibly awesome shit, ongoing storytelling with stuff that I really, really like, with its fair share of shit that I don't give a shit about. But let's start off, if you want to get my attention, start off with the guys from NXT. Cole and Red Dragon come out, Cole grabs the mic, it's story time with Adam Cole, baby. He talks about how 2021 was a great year for them. He went undefeated, he's been undefeated since he got here, and now all the boys are back together. The Bucks join in the conversation from the ramp. One of them, and I say one of them because they are completely interchangeable, talked about how he just kicked COVID's ass in 2 days and says sarcastically, thanks for the invite. You know, obviously very upset that he's in there with what is, in all honesty, the Undisputed Era. Now, apparently they're going to be called the Paragon eventually. Apparently that trademark has been filed. This did not come into play tonight. Paragon sounds really lame, but again, at the same time, I will give them the credit, the benefit of the doubt, because Undisputed Era as a name sounded really lame when it started too, and then it just became part of the zeitgeist, did it not? Bucks just make their way to the ring. They say, just welcome to the company, one of the best tag teams out there. Just to remind you that this is our company, and we set ourselves a New Year's resolution of getting those belts back. And obviously, Red Dragon remind them that they've set the same resolution, and they haven't held those titles yet. Adam Cole tries to keep the peace because he still wants to keep the idea of this super group alive, and they're all interrupted by Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta, and the Best Friends. Now, I will say that I am experiencing a little bit of fatigue on a couple of factions. You guys know I don't give a shit about QT Marshall and all his guys. Much of a Hardy mark as I am, I do not care about anybody in the Hardy family office other than the ladies that had that awesome hardcore match a couple weeks ago. And I'm sorry, Orange Cassidy individually, sure, but the Best Friends, etc., and the whole, I know they're tied to Chaos, which is a big thing in New Japan, but I don't watch New Japan, so I don't care. That whole group, I'm really tired of. Until AEW went full AEW and completely turned my mind around on the whole thing. Because walking into a 6-on-4 disadvantage, Orange, Yuta, and the Best Friends go in. They start brawling with Cole, O'Reilly, Fish, the Bucks, and Brandon Cutler. Adam Cole's about to square off with Orange Cassidy again, because yes, we're going to build and we're going to have that singles match eventually, and it's going to be awesome. And yes, my anticipation is ramping up for that, but it's stopped on a dime because somebody pops up in between the two of them when Adam Cole is about to take his shot. And that person is Chris Statlander, which I really popped for, because Chris Statlander standing face to face with Adam Cole is a sight in and of itself. But then the other shoe drops and out comes Britt Baker, and I popped huge, because these two have already fought. They've already had a title match, a title opportunity, and Chris Statlander going up against Britt Baker again for the title doesn't seem like a thing on its own. But if you want to have all the Best Friends versus Adam Cole and friends and Mrs. Cole Bebe, then that's something that really, really does pique my interest. There is still a numbers disparity. They'd have to pick up one more person, but I'm sure there's somebody else out there that wants to slap the hell out of Adam Cole. We get it later on in the night, what's going to happen next week. It's not quite the whole big faction war, which I'm okay with, because I get it. AEW make their bones on tag team wrestling. They make their bones on factions, which means they make their bones on these huge pile of people brawls. But they've exhausted them at this point, to me. Now, if you want to set up one that's supposed to be a special event, like a Survivor Series adjacent thing, and that's the point of the evening, or that's the point of the event, cool. But how many, especially on Rampage, and I'm sorry, Rampage has fallen off a cliff. How many, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5 matches have there been on Rampage? And yes, I get that Rampage is just the dark matches of the people that are there sitting in the crowd live for Dynamite. But that, it sort of played its course, and then if you throw an intergender bent on the whole thing, it could have been a mess. So the fact that that's not what we're getting, it makes me even more excited. But they have this last standoff. Britt Baker and Chris Statlander do their own thing, because much like WWE, you're not going to get actual intergender competition. It's the one thing Impact Wrestling has over everybody else, is they have the balls to do the proper intergender wrestling stuff. And I cannot stop giving them credit for that, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Chelsea Green got splashed by her new husband at Hard to Kill. Between her husband and the referee and a turnbuckle, she got squished in the semi-main, because of course Mickie James had to win in the main event. But we don't need to go there. We don't need to talk about it. It's fine. My girl Deonna Purrazzo got screwed over there, just like my girl Ruby Soho got screwed over last week by Cora Jade. We don't need to talk about that either. Point being, this is a great opening segment. Immediately, just by positioning faces in front of each other and letting the crowd draw their own conclusions, it was one of those... It was, if you remember when The Shield was just becoming big and the Wyatt family had just become a thing on the main roster, and nobody really said anything about it, but we all kind of said, hey, I wonder if the Wyatts and The Shield are gonna fight at some point. And there wasn't really much to it, other than one particular episode of Raw where the Shield were in the ring, the Wyatts came to the ring, and they just stood there and looked at each other and let the crowd reaction speak for itself. It's like the one WrestleMania where Triple H and The Undertaker stood in front of each other and didn't have to say anything and let the crowd reaction speak for itself. Now, I'm not saying that this was up on that level, but it was the very similar type of thing, and it had several levels. It had the two groups of guys face to face, cut off by one girl coming in, and Statlander and Adam Cole, which is a really odd visual, but it was fun to think about. And then you had Britt in there, and then sort of the piece was complete. Now, I will say, once again, speaking of the intergender wrestling, I have to find it still. There was an indie show in the past week or so where I don't know whether it was the main event or the semi-main, but it was Josh Alexander versus Ruby Soho. I want to find that match. I want to watch the fuck out of that match, because that would be an intense grind of an intergender match. the entertaining equivalent of that, I think, would be Adam Cole versus Chris Statlander, but that we're not going to get that in AEW, are we? Unless they throw it on a unless they manage to tweak it and throw it on a pay-per-view, but I don't think they're going to do that, seeing as Adam Cole is technically the number one contender. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about what else Adam Page is doing later on. Next up, we have Punk versus Wardlow with MJF in his corner, and I would love to tell you about the match. The match was great. The match was big powerhouse tank Wardlow being put over by a master in CM Punk, who does pretty convincingly get his ass handed to him. And towards the end of the match, Wardlow does in fact go for the Powerbomb Symphony, and you think, you know, every time he goes for another one, you think, okay, well, this is where Punk outsmarts him and he reverses the powerbomb into something. But he hits him 5 powerbombs in a row and goes for the pin. And MJF hops up on the apron and says, that's not enough, because this is the guy that's been telling me off, and you're my big, you know, muscly weapon. Powerbomb him some more. So you get powerbomb 7, powerbomb 8. Punk rolls to the outside. MJF brings the table out, powerbombs him through the table. Almost gets counted out. Barely gets himself back in the ring, goes for one more powerbomb and gets rolled up, and MJF loses his shit. Punk rolls out of the ring after outsmarting Wardlow. Wardlow does kind of come off like a dumb gorilla in the whole thing because he had the match won. He then goes on to destroy Punk some more, which should make him look great, but it makes him look even stupider when Punk is able to be like, I'm just going to roll you up now. The segment's almost over. You know, it's almost time for a commercial break. MJF's selling off Wardlow. Wardlow's about to have that Alex Riley moment and take him out. But Spears is in there playing the Peacekeeper. Spears in there in his suit with no shirt on. It's weird. But it just sort of dies. It teases the it teases the Wardlow turn on MJF. It teases the Wardlow face turn. It teases MJF getting his ass handed to him by his former protege, etc. And it's all held off by Shawn Spears, who I don't remember we're going to talk about his next match in a second, but I can't remember the last time Shawn Spears had a match. And no, Dark and Dark Elevation do not count because a wrestling company should not give you homework. Moving on to Powerhouse Hobbs versus Dante Martin. And it's a Dante Martin match, therefore I don't care. At least he gets his ass handed to him through most of the match, but because it's Dante Martin and the world hates me, Jay Lethal, of all people, comes in and helps Dante Martin get the win. So at this point, Dante Martin is the Naomi of not Impact, AEW. And what do I mean by that? Yes, he's got athletic skill. He's a more athletic person than me. Nobody's going to take that away from him. He can get stuff done in the ring. Cool. He's got the personality of a wet sock. So we're going to keep putting him with more entertaining people like Lio Rush, now like Jay Lethal. For a cup of coffee, we thought he was joining the Team Taz. We had him with Matt Sydal for a little bit, so we're going to keep putting him with these more charismatic people, hoping that it rubs off on him. Much like we did with Naomi. We put her in Team Bad. We teamed her up with Paige. We teamed her up with Becky Lynch. We teamed her up with, I think, Carmella at one point, and it just doesn't work. Stop trying to make these people that... Stop! Stop wasting people that should get pushes on trying to push people that are not pushable. I'm putting it out there. And the other thing about this, too, is none of this put any focus on Hobbs. Hobbs went in there and wrecked him. Hobbs is a fucking machine. I would put Hobbs on the level of a Big E or a Bobby Lashley, although most people probably would not agree with me. He should be handed the world. He should be handed a push. He and Ricky Starks should at least have a storyline where they might be going for the AEW tag titles. You could play up some kind of story where Ricky Starks is happy to be the FTW championship, but since AEW won't recognize that title, he'll go for one that they will. He'll bring Hobbs along for the ride and they can try for the tag titles. That would be a cool story. That would be a cool way you could use Hobbs instead of using somebody good to make somebody boring seem less boring. And immediately this sucks all the venom out of my excitement for Jay Lethal coming to AEW. So good job, you failed on all points right there. We got the Inner Circle in the back being interviewed, and they've been named the PWI Faction of the Year. I do think it's kind of funny that it just so happens AEW is happy to promote PWI the year that they got handed all the awards. That's not sketch at all. Jericho puts over Sammy because Sammy's defending the interim TNT Championship later on against Red Death Danny Garcia, which is fine, and then Kingston and Jericho argue some more. They argue because they both have problems with Team 2.0, but they want to be the ones to take them out, and Kingston's doing some machismo, I don't need any help bullshit, and Kingston and Jericho are going to have a match at some point, and it's going to be hilarious. What it's taking us to get there is just these two guys that I think are badass in very different ways, bickering like old ladies. And it's not the move, that's all I'm saying. MJF grabs the microphone and he's back out to the ring and he's pissed off, and he's pissed off at Wardlow, and Punk got lucky and he beat up an idiot, and next week everybody's going to get the match. Everybody's going to get the match that they want. They're going to get CM Punk versus Shawn Spears. And the thing is, it's just going to be another link in the story, and there's going to be all kinds of involvement, and there's going to be all kinds of story progression for the MJF thing or whatever. But take all that out of it. Put this match in a bubble. Shawn Spears versus CM Punk in a one-on-one match is a match I wouldn't mind seeing. So I'm kind of sad that it's being used as a stepping stone to get to the MJF thing, because it's an actual match that I would actually like to see. Adam Cole and Britt Baker and the Bucks and Red Dragon are all in the back, and they're all calling out Orange Cassidy, they're all calling out Chris Statlander, and basically next week on Impact, or no, fuck, I need to stop saying Impact, on Dynamite, we are getting Cole and Britt versus Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander. Later on in the night, Statlander answers their challenge while she's also trying to hype up a trios match that she's having with Red Velvet and Layla Hirsch on Rampage against against Nyla Rose and some other people. Rampage is struggling, guys. It's struggling to get my attention. And I liked the first match that they had, but I do not need this like enemies, frenemies, sometimes friends, sometimes enemies thing with Layla Hirsch and Chris Statlander. Give Layla Hirsch something else to do, because I think she's awesome. I think she's incredibly underutilized in the company, but I don't need to see her bickering with her tag team partner while Red Velvet is sitting there as the awkward third, trying to sell me on a trios match that I don't care about on a show that is boring. Especially when Statlander is part of the match that is selling me on next week's episode of Dynamite. You're giving me all the good things in all the bad ways. Adam Page comes out as the champion, and he's dressed as a cowboy, and his t-shirt says he's like Smokey the Bear's helper or some bullshit, and he puts over Bryan Danielson, he puts over the combined 90 minutes that they've spent fighting, he puts over what it means for him to be AEW champion, and who's going to be his next challenger. And I thought for the third time tonight we were going to see Adam Cole, because they made a point of telling us last week, I don't know whether it was on Dynamite or, oh no, it wasn't, it was on Rampage, it was during the match with Jake Atlas, where Jake Atlas suffered the injury that we talked about last week. But they made a point on commentary of mentioning that Adam Cole is the new number one contender, because he's here and he's undefeated and he's where he is in the rankings. Roddy Raw. So I thought this would have been the face-off between Adam and Adam. It wasn't. He was interrupted by Dan Lambert. Yep. Dan Lambert. Not even with Scorpio and Ethan Page, just Dan Lambert by himself. And he sort of like ass backwards puts over Adam Page. He puts over his accomplishments, he puts over his abilities, he puts over, you didn't kiss ass and politic in the back like Cody Rhodes to get that belt, which I think is incredibly apropos. But he says, I don't want you to think I'm out here to insult you. I don't want you to come out here and think that I'm telling you suck. I just want you to stop being a cowboy, because you're not a cow. You're from the wrong part of the states to be a cowboy. And his monologue fell off a cliff, but then he was cut off by the returning Lance Archer, and yeah, you think he's going to come and he's going to beat up Dan Lambert, and Dan Lambert runs to the ring because he thinks he's safer in the ring with Adam Page. There's too many Adams, sorry. Than he is out on the ramp with Archer, but Archer misses him and clotheslines Adam Page. So Archer, who doesn't have his manager, because apparently his manager's suffering some sort of illness. Somebody filled me in on Twitter. I'm not entirely sure what Jake the Snake's up to. I don't know whether he's got COVID, whether he's dealing with other things. I don't want to speculate because it would be rude. But he's out there with no direction. We haven't seen him in a while. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to sound like a dickhead, guys. I know he hasn't been there in a while. Didn't exactly miss him. AEW didn't present him in such a way that I would miss him while he was gone, which is really unfortunate because I don't think the guy's bad. I just don't think they've given us anything to bite into, if that makes sense. But he's going to be the next challenger for Hangman for reasons. Is this going to be a stepping stone? Is this going to be like one really hyped up TV match before the next special comes along where he does face Adam Cole, baby, with Britt possibly in his corner, with the Bucks possibly in his corner, with Red Dragon possibly in his corner? Because I'm sorry, I like Adam Page, I like Hangman, I like the matches he had with Bryan Danielson were awesome. The second one was by miles better than the first one, and they did all they needed to do in half the time, which is awesome. I like the match that he had with Omega that won him the title in the first place. The little bit of the nod from the Bucks, some decent storytelling there. But I'm sorry, put those two guys side by side and say, like, who feels more like a main eventer? Who do I want to see with that belt over their shoulder? I'm sorry, but it's Adam Cole, baby. It just is what it is, and I would love to stick in an NXT joke there. It's like, hey, this is how I'm being an NXT fan in AEW, but it's just Adam Cole. Like, Undisputed Era aside, like, the guys from Undisputed Era now being in AEW aside, his association with the Bucks and the amorphous blob that is the Elite aside, just those two, Hangman and Adam Cole. Adam Cole's walking around like a champion right now without a belt. He could come out on Friday on Rampage for no reason wearing Britt's belt and he would feel more like a champion than Hangman does. To me, that is just my opinion. I'm aware that 99% of the people watching / listening to this right now are going to tell me that I'm full of sacrilege, and they're going to hop on Twitter and tell me that it's terrible and horrible and how dare I praise anybody that ever came from WWE. But it's true. Adam Cole's going to be a champion, and the real story is going to be when Kenny Omega comes back and you get Adam Cole versus Kenny Omega, because who's the face, who's the heel, and we get to tell all kinds of interloping, fun, family drama, elite stories from there. None of those are going to involve Hangman, though. I hate to tell you. You know what else I hate to tell you? Because I also don't care. I don't care about Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard living out their feud through FTR and the team of Lee Johnson and Brock Anderson. Because that's apparently happening next week, or it's happening on Rampage, or it's happening at some point. I don't care. I just don't. Shida versus Deeb. And again, I hate to sound repetitive. This is a great match. These two put on great matches. We've seen one too many. I will give them the credit that even though this match is repetitive, every single time these ladies have managed to ramp up the intensity. Pre-match assault, Deeb dominates after the pre-match assault, obviously working on the leg, ripping off all the brace and the protection around the knee and whatever, until she eventually gets her in a single leg crab. And I thought she tapped out. My attention was divided because, quick shout out to Good Mic Work, I was listening to the live watch along thing that he does while I was watching the show, so I didn't hear all of the commentary on the night. Initially I thought it was a tap out. Apparently it was a ref stoppage, so that leaves itself wide open for a part 5. Will this be the 5th match between the two of them? And I will come up here again and I will feel bad again for saying that I am worn down on two women that are still putting out excellent matches. I don't want to be bored by excellent matches. I really don't. I really don't. It makes me think of, and I hate to draw a WWE reference once again, right in the middle of nowhere, it seemed. It came out of nowhere. For no reason, for no title, for no other motivation other than they liked kicking the shit out of each other. You had that Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black feud. And it seemed like every couple of weeks when they needed to fill up a segment, they threw these guys back in the ring together and they could go. And eventually it got to a point where, yeah, it's an Alistair and Buddy match. It's great. On to the next thing. I would really hate to see that happen here. Deeb needs to hold a title at some point. If Deeb is the one to rescue that TBS championship from the undeserving hands of Jade Cargill, I would be okay with that. Sheeta can be somewhere in the mix as well. I don't know. There's no tag team championships in AEW, so the options are limited. As is my interest in Penta El Zero Miedo taking on Matt Hardy. And as I said before when we were talking about factions, always going to pop for the Hardys. Big, massive respect, big part of my childhood, all that stuff. I don't want to see Matt Hardy in the ring in 2022. I just don't. I know Penta's going to have to go on a singles run right now because of the injury to Rey Fenix. That ugly, ugly arm spot that I did not mention in last week's review because I missed it because I'm an idiot sometimes. I will say, while I'm watching in real time, while I'm making notes for what I want to talk to you guys about, I do miss things occasionally. And what I thought was a really awkward chokeslam, and maybe Luchasaurus had botched something, and that's why he stayed down for so long, was actually everybody sort of reacting to the really, really ugly injury to Rey Fenix's arm, which on further review, after I had done recording my review, I went back and I watched it. I'm like, oh, that's ugly. I probably should have talked about that in the review. So it's really unfortunate that Rey Fenix is injured right now, especially when you consider what Penta is about to go into. But yeah, Penta versus Matt Hardy. Rebby Hardy's in the crowd because they're close to their hometown. She's got her like 27 kids around her, which is all good. The in-ring wasn't great. It was... I'm so used to seeing the Lucha Brothers and what they can do with guys like the Bucks that when I see Penta having to slow down because he's in a match with Matt Hardy, I'm trying to say this as respectfully as I possibly can, it's like because he's working at a regular pace, it feels like he's wrestling in slow motion. Does that make sense? So the in-ring wasn't the focus here. There was a lot of character work. There was a lot of playing to the crowd. The dueling Zero Miedo delete chants was a lot of fun. Penta winning with the package pile driver was a lot of fun. Malachi Black obviously comes out after the match. He, lights off, lights on, it's fine. Takes out Alex Abrahantes and brawls with Penta. And who else has he pissed off? He's pissed off the Varsity Blondes. So they jump in, and they've got Julia Hart, and I think she had the eye patch on the right eye this week. So she's moving up in the world. But, and I'm going to get to the huge pop in a second, this doesn't work. You've got one man being jumped by one man, being saved by two more men. So 3-on-1, I guess we're calling Penta the babyface in this scenario. Varsity Blondes are obviously babyfaces. So you've got a 3-on-1 beatdown by the babyfaces. Lights off, lights on. And you get the debut of Malachi Black's new partner, Brody King, who I don't know anything about, but the dude's built like a tank and wrecked everybody, which is awesome. So as much as it's cool and Malachi Black gets to continue his story because now he's got a follower and Brody King gets to have his debut, let's not overshadow that. You gotta believe that these two were going to be facing the Lucha Brothers, and that's obviously not going to happen now because of Rey Fenix's arm situation. I would have loved to see this dude, and this is the first time I've ever laid eyes on this dude, so you gotta cut me some slack on this. But just seeing him and how he bounced everybody around the ring tonight, I would love to see him chuck, and I'm going to steal an Adam Nicholas impression here, chuck Rey Fenix around the ring like an empty tracksuit. That would be a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll get that later on down the line when Rey Fenix comes back, but mixed feelings, because what are you going to do now? You're going to have Penta and the Varsity Blondes take on these guys 3-on-2 with a 3-on-2 advantage for the babyfaces. Doesn't really make sense, unless these guys are just going to feud with the Varsity Blondes, in which case I'm going to care a lot less. Just saying. Speaking of people I care about versus people I don't, the Acclaimed took on Bear Country, and I really don't know what you want me to tell you here. Acclaimed are entertaining. They always pop me with the rap stuff. They're way more charismatic in the ring, and Bear Country do what they need to do. They need to show up and be big. The Acclaimed get the win. Post-match, they get attacked by Sting and Darby. That's going to happen, I think, next week as well, which is all fine and wonderful. Bear Country should go face Aleister Black and this new guy, Brody King. That would be fine because, you know, I'm going to borrow another expression, this time from Big E. Let's have 4 big men slapping man meat. And yes, feel free to make all the jokes you want in the comment section down below. Sammy Guevara versus Daniel Garcia was the main event, and it was for the interim TNT Championship. Now, we got the announcement that Cody Rhodes is coming back next week. So the interim TNT Championship is going to exist for less than 2 weeks because he's got to come back, and I swear to God, and I'm going to say it, it's probably not going to be the last time I say it, Cody Rhodes decided to suck his own cock on national TV. That's the Christmas present he gave himself. And he gave the interim title to Sammy Guevara so that Sammy Guevara could have a nice match with Danny Garcia. The extended story is Jericho and Eddie Kingston are both on the outside of the ring. They're both there to make sure 2.0 don't get involved. They're both there to keep an eye on this title situation. Jericho's there to back his boy. Kingston made it very obvious that he doesn't care about Sammy Guevara, which is weird. So all kinds of drama on the outside. Didn't interfere with the match for the most part. I will say, the match is fantastic. The match is worth going back to see if you didn't see it. Between these two guys, Guevara and Garcia, I'm going to mess those names up, I promise. They have this... fluid is the only way I can talk about it. They have this fluid way of blending from grappling to striking to brawling and back again that I can't remember quite seeing between two guys in such a way. Sammy Guevara at one point uses the crossroads, so he's sending a nice clear message to Cody, which is great. 2.0 eventually show up at ringside and take out Kingston and Jericho, but despite both of their attempts to get involved in the match, Sammy Guevara still gets the win, obviously, with the GTH. There was a couple of really awkward-looking points towards the end of this match because Garcia at one point tries to hit Sammy with a head and neck takeover, and he looks like he goes and he pulls, and the only thing that comes is the head and the neck. And it didn't look ugly. And then at the end of the match, Sammy hits the GTH, and the landing of that looked awkward as well. So there was a little bit of that, is everybody walking away from this type of feeling at the end of the match? But everybody did, and it's fine. Jericho and Kingston chase away 2.0 and then argue to end the show. I don't know, man, because what you're going to have here is you're going to have Jericho and Kingston with common enemies, but they won't be able to get along. They've got common friends in Santana and Ortiz who are not at ringside, so they're going to get involved at some point. And it's, as I said before, it's a match I want to see because it's a match that I predict is going to be incredibly entertaining, but everything that's getting us there, it's just a bit weak. And go back and listen to all the pods that I've done since I started reviewing AEW weekly. I really like Kingston. Kingston is one of the people that I've been introduced to through AEW who he wouldn't be in that 4 pillars conversation, but if you add a 5th pillar, it might be Eddie Kingston. If you add a 6th pillar, it might be Britt Baker, that type of thing. I really like Eddie Kingston, and I pop for Jericho. I like Jericho enough that I gave New Japan a shot when he was facing Omega over there. I don't want to look at these guys and see what they're doing for a match that I know I'm going to like and think that it's weak. It's all the wrong messages. They're doing all the right things in all the wrong ways, and I know I've said that a lot tonight, but AEW, and I'll keep saying it until it's not true anymore, it's not like they have little highs and little lows. They have stuff that's fan-fucking-tastic and stuff that you couldn't pay me to give a rat lizard fuck about, and there's not very much in between. I hate to say it, but it is true. Next week, though, is pretty stacked. Cody returns, and I hope he gets his block knocked off by Sammy Guevara. Be like, hey, you couldn't make it to your title defense? This is the real title now. That's what I want to see. You got Punk versus Spears, which is a match that I want to see that's going to have all kinds of interference that I don't want to see. And you've got the mixed tag, hopefully main event between Britt Baker, Adam Cole, Chris Statlander, and Orange Cassidy. That's going to be a lot of fun. Until they fix Rampage, I'm not reviewing Rampage. It's it's rematches, or it's matches to build matches, or it's big, gigantic pile of people matches, or it's video packages to build to the next week's Dynamite. And that's not something I want to be reviewing at ridiculous o'clock in the morning when I've already watched SmackDown. And the thing is, because I watched SmackDown, and because Rampage has gone so far downhill, even if SmackDown is average, I've watched 2 hours of SmackDown, and then I've streamed an hour of Rampage, and at ridiculous o'clock in the morning or in the night on a Friday, it's not something I'm going to review until they give me something worth reviewing. That's not me shitting on the company, that's me shitting on that show specifically. As I say, stay tuned on Friday. I've got that other commentary coming out, and I hope you guys like that. It was a little different. It was a little collection of my thoughts of what's going on in pro wrestling overall. And yeah, my voice still kind of sucks, so I'm keeping these kind of short. This has gone on for about 30 minutes now. I think that's about enough for a show that I cared about only halfway. 35 minutes is a lot. I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.